facts that seems to get forgotten by history is exactly how callous Microsoft is around its acquisitions. Microsoft has made a series of acquisitions over the years that they just kind of tend to ignore. Two of the most prominent of these would be Nokia, which was purchased by Steve Ballmer and was designed to be able to give Microsoft a leg up in the mobile race. And I think by the time they realized that Google with Android and Apple with iOS had really dominated it, they just kind of lost interest and just kind of let Nokia die and I think sold it off for parts at some point later. But another one that happened was another big acquisition of Skype. So Skype was purchased for a lot of money, and of course Skype was the preeminent peer-to-peer calling platform when Microsoft bought it. And Microsoft basically just let it suffer from benign neglect. Rather than actually leading into it and going, what can we make this communications platform into? And they did Link, which I think became sort of what we have Teams today, and so on and so forth. Skype itself was basically just let die and finally was decommissioned in May of 2025, just a few months ago. And it's really weird because you think Microsoft is so rich and so poorly run that they can simply take something that's a multi-billion-dollar entity with multi-billion-dollar potential and just let it rot. And if you think that's the only example, the other big example is LinkedIn, which they purchased for billions of dollars and have basically done nothing with in all of those years. It's basically exactly the same. Never mind the fact that it's a huge data mine. There's a huge capacity there for producing 21st century ways of working, for team building, for gig economy things, for all of the tools that business people need. None of that is anywhere near LinkedIn, and if I were running it, it would be deeply integrated by now. It would have been deeply integrated in the first 6 months. It would be the absolutely indispensable website for working. But Microsoft hasn't done any of that. And it doesn't need to, because it's making billions and billions and billions of dollars. And this has always been Microsoft's problem, because Microsoft found the golden goose. First, they thought it was Windows, and actually then it turned out to be Office. Now it's Office plus services, such as Azure. That goose, laying the golden eggs, has made Microsoft thick in the head and unable to actually seize the opportunities that it has the money to acquire, but doesn't actually have the sense to use. And is that ever going to change? Is Microsoft ever going to be so desperate that it will actually start to use the enormous resources that it has in order to transform some of the purchases it's made? We might see that with GitHub, but that doesn't look likely either. So why would anyone want to be purchased by Microsoft other than to cash out? Because they know when that happens, it's very likely that company will come to nothing. Something to think about.